Hey guys, I'm Sarah Weck. I work for Descartes Peoplevox as an implementation consultant, and today I'm going to show you around the Peoplevox system. Upon logging in, you'll notice that the system immediately put us in the warehouse module, but we do have 4 modules within the system here in the top right. The reason it defaults to the warehouse module is because it's the most often used module on a day-to-day basis. The setup module is used to set up and configure your system. The reports module shows sophisticated reports based on inventory at your warehouse, as well as dashboards, which are a graphic representation of your data. Within the integration module is where we set up any data transfer between our WMS system and other software platforms. Moving on over to the left, you can see the user that I'm signed in as well as the role that I'm signed in as. We can log off the system right here or change our user's password right here. The help documentation resides right here, and if you need to reach out to our support team, the raise a ticket button is where you can do that within our support portal. Diving on into the modules, we'll start in the setup module and go through each tab, and I'll give you a high-level overview of each tab. First tab being roles. This is where we set up roles within the system. You can see we have some predefined roles already set up for you in your system. They're just generic roles that we typically see in a warehouse, like picker and packer, for example. The administrator role has access to absolutely everything, but the other roles are more limited as for what they can do and see in Peoplevox. Each role is indeed customizable. What I mean by that is whenever we double-click on a role, we can provide read-only or edit access to the various screens within the system. So depending on your business needs, you can change the access for the roles for your users. Speaking of users, we have a users tab right here. This is where we set up all users in the system. If you need to create a new one, you just click on that Add New tab there in the top right. I don't recommend adding an email address and whenever you set up a user, because if you do have an email address listed in there, that user will have to change their password every 90 days. Removals. A removal is simply removing inventory from your stock outside of a sales order. A good example of this is if you find a damaged item and need to remove it from your stock. Registry reasons. Kind of the opposite of removals, you're adding an item and adjusting an inventory in a positive manner using a register. So register brings items into your system without a purchase order. We have some generic register reasons set up here as well, but they're completely customizable. Oftentimes our clients will send their clothes off to influencers or photographers to be used in a photo shoot. And then whenever that photographer sends the clothing back from the photo shoot, you can register that item and to increase your stock to reflect that the photographer now returned that item. Printing tab. This is our print queue where we can see all of the items that have been sent to a printer. Status button shows you whether or not it was a successful print. It'll be green if it was, red if it wasn't, and yellow if it's pending. Print templates. So our system comes pre-configured for you and has a ton of label templates that are already set up. If you decide that you don't like these templates, no worries. We can design customizable labels using Zebra Designer 3. It's pretty handy over here on the left-hand side. We can search by the type of label. The most common label that we're seeing used is the location label. And then off on the right, you can see a little preview of what that label will look like. Packages. So packages are useful for a few things. At the dispatch station, we can scan barcodes that are associated with certain package sizes, and that will update your order and streamline your dispatch process. We can also use this data to report from, so you can look back at a month and look at a report that shows you how many you used of just one package size in a given time to help you know how many packages of a specific size to reorder in the future. Return reasons. So these are reasons for why an item is being returned to you, such as it was a damaged item or an unwanted gift. If you need to add a new return reason, you just do that up here on the top right. Return states. So oftentimes whenever customers return an item to you, they could be damaged and not be reusable. So you don't want to sell an item that's damaged and not reusable to another customer because they're just going to return that as well. So here's where we set up the states of items that are being returned. So you can say, hey, this item has been returned, it's damaged, they're receiving a refund, and it's not reusable. Skip reasons. So as the users are out picking in the warehouse, they can skip picking an item. They could skip an item because the item was too heavy and they can't carry it, or even they could say, hey, the barcode was not scannable on this item, so I could not pick it. Unpick reasons are used at the dispatch station. If damaged products make it all the way to dispatch, you can unpick the item so it's not sent out. Then the system will tell you need to grab another item and ship out another item. Document types. This is where document types are set up in the system, and they can indicate what we need to print. We can set up a document here to control the API connection with your carrier integration. Sites are the foundation level of the location group hierarchy and must be set up first in Peoplevox before other locations can be created. Under the warehouse module, within the suppliers tab, we can set up new suppliers that can be used on purchase orders. Same goes for customers. We can set up customers that are used on sales orders here on this screen. Under the Carriers tab, we can set up any carriers that you might utilize. Items exist underneath the Items tab. If you have a lot of items, I recommend doing a CSV import to get items into the system rather than setting them up manually here. On hand is what you have in your warehouse currently. Allocated is what is on sales orders. Available is the difference between on hand and allocated. On order is the sum of items on purchase orders, and quarantine is what's at your quarantine location. You can print out an item label right here by clicking the checkbox and then print above. Locations. As I mentioned earlier, the foundational level of locations are sites. Getting more granular, we have warehouses, zones, aisles, bays, shelves, and slots. Containers are an optional feature you can utilize to move a pallet of items around your warehouse. Under the Sales tab exists all of your sales orders. You can either manually enter them or import them through the CSV import. You can click this button here to show any dispatched or canceled sales orders. Actions. This is where you create actions for users to go out on the floor and pick sales orders. You would click on this Add button right here to create a new action. Dispatch. This is where all dispatched orders would reside. Returns. You can either enter a return here, or you can enter a return on the mobile application. The only difference is you can enter more than one item on a return in the mobile app. Under the Purchase tab is where purchase orders reside. Again, you can either manually enter them here or do a CSV import. You can also utilize this checkbox right here to show any completed or canceled POs. Under the Goods In tab, we can see goods that were brought in along with their Goods In reference numbers. You can see what date and time goods were received in as well. Stock take. The only place to do a stock take is within our Android application. In the Adjustments tab, this is a very locked down feature. Only admins have access to do adjustments to inventory within the system. Within the Reporting module, you'll notice we have two different tabs here in the top left. We have Reports and Dashboards. Tons of default reports that you can use out of the gate listed down here on the System Reports. If you click on a report and save that report definition, they'll show here in the My Reports tab. And if you decide to share these reports with anybody using this Share tab, you can share it by user or by role. It'll show up here under the Shared Reports column on the left after you've shared reports with users. The cool thing about our reports is they're very customizable in the sense that you can change different columns and rename columns here using this field. You can do grouping and you can even sort. Within the Dashboards tab, you'll see visual representations or graphics of your data that you saw there in the reporting module. The data on dashboards are refreshed every 10 minutes, but we do have a setting that you can change in PVX tools to change that refresh time. Oftentimes, dashboards are displayed on a computer or a TV out in the warehouse to show things like how many orders you're shipping out a day or which pickers of yours are most efficient. The last module that I wanted to show you today is the integration module. Within the integration module, we have different integration templates that can be exported. Then you can add the data to the Excel sheet and then import the data here using this import button to bring the data into the system. It is important to note that some imports require two different templates here. So for example, purchase orders. You have your purchase order header, and then you have your purchase order items that you have to import. You always want to import the header data before the item data. If you have a bad import and it throws an error, you can review your event logs here to see why an error has occurred. The status will be red for any errors that show up. Your carrier integration is set up here within the carrier integration.